The term campus safety can be interpreted in many different ways, but the types I'll be focusing on in this video are physical violence, which also includes sexual violence, and mental health issues. Physical violence is a very broad definition, but I'm not going to get into like domestic violence and stuff like that because it has nothing to do with, campus violence. I'm also going to exclude mass shootings because that just starts a different conversation about gun control, and that doesn't serve this video at all. So the main types I'll be focusing on are robberies, assaults, murders, and harassment, which is a little bit different, but it's not quite mental health, and it can lead to physical violence. And just in 2016 alone, there were over 28,000 criminal incidents against people and property on college campuses, which is an insanely high number, and it was also a higher number than it was the year prior. So to get into sexual violence, it's a form of physical violence, but it's so pertinent on college campuses that it needs to be discussed separately. Like physical violence, it also takes many different forms, and I'd say the most pertinent to college campuses are rape, drug-facilitated sexual assault, which is also rape, but it's a little bit different. Stalking, which is a lot bigger of a problem than you probably think it is on college campuses. And there's many others, but those are the main ones that college students will experience in their 4 years at school. So the U.S. Department of Justice reported that 1 in 4 female undergraduate students will experience some form of sexual assault while they're at school. And they also estimate that 3 out of the 10 of those victims will go on to get PTSD because of that incident. A lot of sexual assaults take place in dorm rooms, and there was a report 2 years ago by MAPT, and they reported that just under half of sexual assaults that happen on campus happen in freshman dorms. And there's interesting stats as well saying that you're much more likely to experience sexual assault in the fall semester compared to the spring semester, and it's your freshman fall semester and your sophomore fall semester where you're most likely to experience sexual assault. And that MAP report was the first of its kind because they wanted to figure out where and when these incidents were happening to kind of give colleges a better idea of how to stop them. Mental health is a tricky topic to talk about because there's many different definitions. I'm going to come out and say this, though, about what we're going to get into later. I'm not going to talk about, and we're not going to talk about when a political commentator comes to campus and someone's feelings get hurt and they get upset about that person, because that they don't have any threat other than opposing views, which isn't a threat. Colleges are constantly criticized for not doing enough about these incidents because of how often they occur and how they seem easier to prevent than what is actually happening. And there's got to be a better way to limit assaults of both kinds, physical and sexual, and suicides, and just promoting a safer environment for college students, especially people who are living on their own for the first time. Okay, so the recent murder of Lauren McCluskey at the University of Utah grabbed a lot of national headlines. So Lauren was murdered by her ex-boyfriend on campus in a parking lot. And I'm not going to get too much into the details of why she was murdered, but the response by campus police and by the university is something that will be more important as you get further along into our project. So Lauren and her friends called campus police over 20 times to report her ex-boyfriend's stalking and intimidation, and obviously there wasn't an adequate response because she ended up getting killed. And there's been multiple protests since she was murdered, including one on her the anniversary of her death, where students criticized the university for the lack of action they took and the lack of changes that were put in place to prevent future incidents like this. Okay, the last incident I'm going to talk about is Brock Turner. And Brock Turner was a very high-profile case when it went to court. And I think Stanford actually gets applauded for how they took care of it. They weren't really able to do anything else but to expel him because he was convicted. So Brock Turner, his case kind of gives you a good idea of what happens on these campuses. So Brock was at a frat house, and there was a girl that was passed out, and he raped her, and 2 students subdued him. But what was uncomfortable about the case was how comfortable Brock looked. He looked like he was about to get away with something. And rapes like what happened with Brock Turner, they happen all the time around the country. This one was just so high profile because of what ended up happening and the short sentence he got and how he looked like he knew that he got away with